like a bell cut.
Hello and welcome back to the channel where once again it's time for another Sega Saturn review, and I thought today we'd take a look at another light gun game, this time with it being Area 51, which originally saw release in the arcades in November of 1995 before coming home to the Saturn in November 96 in North America, February 97 in Japan, and then finally March 1997 over here in the PAL region. So the story for Area 51 is pretty simple. An alien force known as the Kron are trying to invade Earth and the Area 51 military base with a load of alien-created zombies as well, and it is your job as a member of the Strategic Tactical Advanced Alien Response Team, also known as STAR, to put a stop to this alien force. So heading on to the main menu, you'll see you've got Arcade Mode, Practice Mode, Options, and High Scores. Heading into options, you can do things like calibrate the gun for player 1 and player 2, change the number of lives, change the number of continues, quite standard stuff that you expect to see within a light gun shooter. So like always, I'll talk about how it looks, how it sounds, how it plays, content and lifespan, whether it's still worth playing today, and if it can make our Sega Saturn top 10. Now in the looks department, there's no denying Area 51 feels like a light gun game from the previous generation. I feel like if this had been released 2 or 3 years prior, people would have looked on it more favourably in the way that it looks. But for me, the pre-rendered FMV footage, the pre-rendered backdrops, they're just simply not very effective, not very detailed. The digitized sprites, again, aren't particularly good looking, nor are the explosion effects when all of the enemies die. I really don't think that Area 51 is a visually impressive game, especially when we'd seen Virtua Cop and Virtua Cop 2 released on the Saturn. By this point, they were just so more advanced in the way that they looked and sort of like performance in comparison to a light gun game like this. Another negative is the fact there's a big border going around the whole entire screen, and it reduces the screen size, and that's quite a disappointing thing. So I like to have as much visible play area as possible, especially in a light gun game. So that's a downside as well. In terms of performance though, the game does run fine. There isn't really any major slowdown issues or glitches, anything like that. It does run perfectly well. But overall in the looks department, Area 51 is definitely not one of the most impressive light gun games from that generation. So moving on to sound effects and music next, and I feel quite indifferent in this area because I don't feel the game is particularly positive, but at the same time I don't feel it's particularly negative either. All of the sound effects for the weapons and the explosions are perfectly fine. They're of reasonable quality. Haven't got anything to complain about there. I do feel the screeches and the noises that the aliens make when you destroy them do start to grate and get a little bit irritating. And the music for the game just feels very bland and generic. I just felt the whole game sounded quite samey from start to finish, if I'm perfectly honest. So what I'll do is play you a few tracks so you can decide for yourselves what you think about the soundtrack to Area 51. So moving on to gameplay next, and this for me is actually Area 51's biggest strength because it's a perfectly decent playing light gun game. I've got no issues with the way this game plays. It's responsive, it's pretty accurate, and it's fairly enjoyable to play. Now in terms of the layout of the game, it's very simplistic, a bit of FMV plays, it freezes on a pre-rendered backdrop, and then you're shooting all the bad guys until it progresses you to the next screen and so on, and it takes you through the different areas until you get to the final boss and complete the game. It's a very systematic, tried and tested formula for a light gun game, but it works perfectly fine. There's a variety of upgrades to your guns as well. You can increase your firepower, increase the amount of ammo that you've got, get automatic shots, you can collect grenades which can be used to clear the screen of all standard enemies, and it just plays relatively well overall. I just really haven't got anything bad to say about the way it plays. The only downside for me was that quite a lot of the time I felt like I was reloading my gun, shooting off the screen, but it wasn't registering, and that is a little bit infuriating. But for me, that's the only downside negatively gameplay wise, because I do feel Area 51 is actually a pretty good playing light gun game. So moving on to content and lifespan next, and to go with the arcade mode, we've got a very shallow practice mode, which is simply one single screen of recycling enemies over and over, and this carries on basically until you decide to quit. A very, very pointless mode, if I do say so myself. Now, as well as that, we've got a Cron Hunter mode, where if you kill 3-star members without shooting anything else, you'll enter this mode where basically the colours are altered and you take on the role of a mercenary sent by the Crons to gun down all the rebels, but the game is basically just the same with altered colours, and your ammo is slightly altered to look different. It really doesn't add a whole lot to the game in my opinion, and of course content is the major downside for Area 51 because it doesn't have much. Just like a lot of light gun games from this time, it was very shallow and there's not much replay value here. And another downside is the fact that this game takes less than 20 minutes to complete from start to finish. Yes, there are a couple of different endings, but the fact is, I feel once you've done through it twice, seen them both, you're never going to play this game ever again. It doesn't really have any kind of long-lasting appeal, whereas Virtual Cop or Virtual Cop 2 are games that you might come back to time and again with a friend. I don't feel Area 51 has that quality. So in terms of content and lifespan, Area 51, not particularly impressive. So of course that leaves us with our two final questions. Is Area 51 still worth playing today, and does it make our Saturn top 10? Well, if you've never played this game before and you've got a CRT with light guns for the Saturn, it's worth a playthrough because it's actually reasonably enjoyable to play through it once, maybe twice. But other than that, no, it's not really worth going back to if you've played it previously. Now, does it have the quality to make our Saturn top 10? Well, you'll probably guess the answer to that, and no, of course. Light gun games like this just don't have the content. I said it with Virtua Cop, and of course Area 51 is just simply nothing special. It's just a pretty average game overall, if I'm honest. Not terrible, but at the same time, not spectacular either. So no, it does not make our Saturn top 10. You can see our PAL top 10 going up the screen as I speak. Now, of course, these are just my thoughts and my thoughts alone. Did you feel differently about Area 51 when it came out? Do you think it's better than what I've said, or do you think it's absolutely awful? Let me know with a comment down below. And like always, I'll be back in the near future with another Saturn review. Goodbye for now.